Awesome. Excited to be here. I'm gonna try to share my screen and hopefully everything goes well. Let's see here. There we go. Awesome. Okay, well, perfect. Well, today I'm going to talk about for a few minutes how to eliminate content silos. Two big things, just kind of maybe introducing myself real quick. I am the co-founder of Masset.ai. Getmasset.com, AI are fun domains and all that kind of stuff. But I love content. Like everything I do every day is about content. I have been marketing for the last almost 20 years. It's kind of scary to say that, but I absolutely love content. If it's in shows or books, anything that has a story, including business content, is something that I love. I'm the father of four boys. We don't own nice things. Like everything gets destroyed. The house is in a mess. It's lots of fun, but good times there. I also host a podcast called Content Amplified. We have over 400 episodes. I love interviewing guests and talking about content. I do it almost every single day. It's something I love. I am in the process of becoming a minimalist. I love like eliminating stuff in my house. I'm trying to get the rest of the family to agree with this philosophy. As you can tell, the only thing I'm not a minimalist about is my books. I'm going to continue to collect those as they come along. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. Um, the uh, the company that I started is called Masset. Marketing assets, mass assets. It's kind of where the name came from. And really, the whole point of the company that I started was that you have all of these different content sources, content on your website, content all over the internet, in random Google Drive folders, Dropbox, hard drives, who knows where. It's all over the place. Masset is a central source of truth, brings it into one place, lets you do version control, give access, understand it through AI understanding, all sorts of really cool, powerful tools to really make sure that it's the right, accurate content. And then we use cool technology to push that out to your AI agents, your bots, your AI systems, your teams, all that kind of fun stuff. And that's probably all I'll talk about at Masset. So we're nerdy on that front. We work with B2B businesses, typically from 250 to 2,500 employees. So I'm talking about content chaos. This is a problem if you're in any kind of a business. Everyone needs content. No matter what you do, where you're at, content is vital. But looking and searching and hunting for your content is a nightmare. And it is actually really expensive for your business. So you have for knowledge workers inside of a business, they are losing 1.8 to 2.4 hours every single day looking for knowledge and content inside of a business. So that's 1 out of 5 days. One day every week is wasted on hunting for content and answers. For sellers, that's 55 selling days that are wasted. Marketing content, 60 to 70% of it never gets used in the business. Just imagine that. Over half of the content in your business that gets created will never get used. That's an expensive line item for a business. When you think about case studies and other content, that can cost you tens of thousands of dollars per piece of content. And that is very expensive. Overall, if you're at 1,000 person company, you're probably wasting at least $3 million dollars a year in searching for content and having to deal with this chaos. So, I have a fun little kind of presentation here. These are my 5 steps that I would recommend for anyone of how to kind of cure content chaos. It doesn't matter if you're in a 2 person business, 200 person business, 2,000 person business. If you follow these steps, content chaos will be much better for your business. Your life will be better. You'll use content on a better level. You'll waste way less money. Your close rates go up. Your teams will be aligned. This is something that I really hold true to. So, step number 1 is assign a gatekeeper. Now, I have been in businesses before where they had a really difficult time saying, this is the owner of whatever process, system, decision. They had a hard time giving someone the ownership. And what I mean by that is ultimately someone who gets to say, Yes or no. We are doing this, we're not doing that. And this is completely true when it comes to content as well. So, in order to eliminate this chaos, the biggest thing that you need to do, this is step number one for a reason, is give someone complete ownership. They're the gatekeeper. That means they can get rid of content. That means they can approve content. That means they know what could be created, what shouldn't be created. Someone in the business needs to be the final decision maker and have the ability to say yes or no. Nothing else I talk about today is at all possible unless you have the gatekeeper and the decision maker. Okay. So, number two, you need to have a single source of truth. So, your content is scattered. Like I talked about before, it is on your website, it is in your folders, it's on someone's hard drive, it's in a Dropbox, it's in a Canva file, it's who knows where, it's everywhere. You need to have a single source of truth. Now, the bonus for this is if you have a source of truth that can actually link out to different resources because content's everywhere, but you need to have one home for it. Now, it's funny, but in typical businesses, if you even have one source of truth, people are often not going to go to it. That's just the matter of fact. But if you have two, three, four, or five different sources of truth, nobody will go to those sources, and you're just going to have a million Slack messages where people are bugging and asking questions or emailing saying, where do I find this? What do I do with this? How do I answer this? That's where the wasted time comes in. So you need to find a single source of truth. I don't care if you're doing like a custom microsite for your company, like a Google Sheet. It doesn't matter. Find something where you can document it all and link to the different places where you have accurate content. It's got to be one place, single source of truth. The next thing that you're going to do is a quarterly content audit. Now, whenever I hear the word audit, there's like sheer torture and like anxiety about doing an audit. This is not that kind of a meeting. So, this is really simple. What happens is you get your gatekeeper, the decision maker that you've already did in step one. You pull out that source of truth and you get everyone else involved who is involved in content, whether it's creators, requesters, users, doesn't matter. Try to get as many people involved. This should take an hour a quarter tops. Bring donuts, have fun with it, bring in lunch, do whatever you got to do. When people hear audit, they run. When they hear donut, they come running. So just do what you got to do. So you're only going to do two things in this meeting. Number one, you're going to go through the source of truth. And when you go through that source of truth, what you're going to do is you're going to go through everything and say, what needs to be deleted? Is there anything that's inaccurate? Is it outdated? Does it not have the right product information? Does it not have accurate information? Is the pricing outdated? And if it is inaccurate, don't worry about creating a new version or anything at all. You are going to take it out of the source of truth. So now what you have is a source of truth that only has accurate content that you can rely on and people could refer to. They could send to clients and customers, and you wouldn't be afraid about the accuracy of that content. So that's step one. Take everything out that has any inaccuracies. And then number two, what you're going to do is make a list of all the documents that you just took out that you need to update and then put back into the system. This isn't where you're trying to get net new ideas or anything like that. This is purely a place where you're going to go through and say, okay, now the source of truth again is 100% accurate. We're comfortable with the company referring to that. Again, the one of the interesting quotes is garbage in, garbage out. If you are not feeding AI or your systems accurate information, it is going to hallucinate and give you bad information. Old content is going to feed your AI systems and everything else you have with bad information. So you need to make sure that single source of truth is accurate. And then number two, okay, these are documents we took out that we really do need. We need to update them and we're going to work on putting them back into the source of truth. So those are the elements that you do in this audit. Three things. One, bring donuts. Number two, you're going to actually delete content. Anything that is inaccurate, doesn't matter what it is, how important it is, you have to get rid of it. And then number two, the important things you took out that you can't live without, you have to put them on a list and update them and put them back in when you're ready for it. Number four, you're going to build a content scoring GPT. Okay. So I love all of the different AI systems. My startup uses AI. We've built it. We use all the different models. Pick your favorite thing. It can be custom gems in Gemini. It can be custom GPTs in GPT or projects with Claude. Doesn't matter what it is, but you're going to take your top 10 to 20 pieces of content and you're going to throw them into a single prompt and you're just going to ask ChatGPT. I'm going to use that as the example because that's my preferred method right now. And I'll say, hey, tell me about my brand voice. Tell me about what I do well with this content. Talk to me about my cadence and the personas and the audience and how I write and what really is the definition of my brand and my content, what we talk about, what we do. And if anyone wants, connect with me on LinkedIn. I can actually send you a prompt to get this information. I'm more than happy to do it. But you're going to throw that content in and you're going to ultimately ask this chat GPT and you're going to say, create a custom set of instructions for a custom GPT to score my content from 1 to 100 based off of how well it aligns with my best content that I just gave you. It's going to give you a big, long set of instructions and scoring criteria, all that kind of fun stuff. You're going to create that custom GPT. And every time you're thinking about adding a piece of content into your source of truth, it needs to go to the custom GPT. You're going to get a score between 1 and 100, and you have to hold yourself to a standard. You have to say, I will not put anything in our source of truth that is not above an 80 or a 90 or whatever it may be. And as you do that, you hold up this rigor, and your source of truth will hold itself to a higher standard as time goes on. And it holds everyone else on the team to a higher standard. Now, in that custom GPT, have it give you recommendations about how to improve your score, all that kind of fun stuff. But make sure that you have a scoring threshold. Use a custom GPT. So it's really simple. You pull it up, drag and drop the content, bam, score. Does it pass or not? If it doesn't pass, here's what I need to fix, and then I can move on with life. Okay. And then one final thing, every asset has to align to a buyer stage. If you are creating content, whether it be on your blog, whether it be social media content, whether it be a presentation like this, it doesn't matter what you're creating. If it's for sellers, if it's for customers, you have to associate it to a stage of the buyer journey. Now, it can be really complex if you're like, well, this is awareness stage 1 or consideration stage 3 or whatever it may be, that's fine. Or it can just be the simple outline of awareness, consideration, decision, expansion, advocacy, whatever you want to call each stage. But you need to know when a piece of content goes into your source of truth, and this is your gatekeeper's responsibility, it actually needs to, and you might even want to store it in the file name itself. This is the stage of the journey that this content associates with. And that way, it is also an element, and you can put this in your custom GPT, that the content that you are providing provides actual business outcomes. If you associate it with a stage of the buyer's journey, now you're thinking about what am I trying to accomplish with this content instead of writing content for content's sake. If I say this is an awareness piece of content, I am just trying to engage, intrigue, and have people know who I am and provide them with value. Great. That holds me to a different standard. But if someone's in consideration, well, how do I get them from point A to point B? How do I get them to understand that the budget for my resource is worth spending on? How do I get them to know that other people trust me? If it's for customers and training, it's about adoption and usage and things of that nature. And then you're able to go through that process and say, does this accomplish the overall goal? If it does, fantastic. Throw it through the GPT. If it passes, throw it into your source of truth. If it doesn't, go back to the drawing board and always ask yourself, what stage of the buyer journey am I looking at? So again, 5 stages to kind of prevent a lot of this chaos. It'll save you a day a week, millions of dollars, depending on the size of your organization. Employee satisfaction will go up. Close rates will go up. I mean, content is everywhere. It'll improve your hiring, all sorts of incredible things. And if you do this, like eventually you might grow out of this and want a tool, and that's where the Massets of the world and stuff like that come through. If you do this, you're going to be good for a long time. You're going to be in a good position. Assign a gatekeeper and an owner, have the one single source of truth, do your quarterly content audit, build the custom GPT or gem or whatever you want to call it, and then tie every asset to the buyer stage. If you do that, you genuinely will be above what, in my opinion, I don't have any statistics or data around this, you will be above 90% of businesses that actually use content because you will have a system that people follow and your content will have a source of truth. People will not waste time searching for it. People will actually be able to use the content and it will serve your business needs and it will benefit your business like never before. So that's my spiel, presentation, all that kind of fun stuff. Hopefully, these are really tactical steps that everyone can take and help your business, regardless of what kind of business or stage you're at.
Awesome. Awesome, Ben. Nice light plug there for Masset. Good job. We
Light
tell
is a
our
little,
Midday
little
Connect
heavy-handed.
speakers, yeah, it's not a long form commercial. So thank you for not making it a long form commercial. I'll just go over to the chat over here. Anyone who's got a question, go ahead and put it in. I'll start with Mike's. He's curious what you would suggest for categorizing, storing, and keeping track of photos and images, and maybe other types of content like that.
It's a good question. With artificial intelligence, it becomes 10 times better. Now you have systems where you can go in and drop your photos, use a large language model that can understand what the photo is about, what the text is on the screen, all of those kind of fun things. Honestly, for your single source of truth, it depends on what you're using. You know, it can be tied into AI tools, things of that nature. Typically, if you're using a lot of photography, you're going to want to use probably a digital asset management tool of some sorts, is my recommendation, depending on the amount of assets. So if you're in a level of I can manage this one by one, just use, like a Google document or something like that and use custom fields for it, all that kind of stuff. If you're in the thousands, you're probably looking at custom solutions that manage like photo control that have deep integrations with AI.
Awesome. Chad Roll says, when you mention the low percentage of content actually used, is it mostly because of it being not useful or not being properly organized or indexed?
It's a good question. I would say yes to both. The number one thing, though, is typically it is not found. Marketing will create the content in a silo, or whoever in the business creates the content. They'll store it somewhere in a silo. They might send out an email or a Slack message, something along those lines to say, hey, we have this new content. And the individuals using the content think to themselves, I never wanted that. I never needed that. And all of a sudden, they never use it. Or if they're looking for content, they just go back to the 3 or 4 files they've used before. If they have a source of truth, they'll actually start to look through the source of truth and discover some of that content. But most of the time is nobody knows it was ever created. I mean, you'll get messages all the time. Do we have a case study that talks about this? And you'll say, I've got 5 of them and you haven't used any of them already. And it's not a mistake from any side of that equation. It's just impossible for that person who needs it to find it. And that is a part of the system and the disorganization.
Awesome. Uh, Marion, do you want to come off mute and just ask your question? Maybe add to it. Marion asked, have you ever seen AI pulling the wrong context before?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Every single day. It doesn't matter how good your system is or what happens. AI is going to struggle sometimes. Now, the best way you can solve that is, again, the source of truth. If you only have a curated list of content that you have human verified as accurate and legitimately helpful, then your AI is not struggling as much with different pieces of content that contradict each other. It's getting a legitimate source of truth where it can understand things better. Also, less is more. Like throwing it at 1,000 different pieces of content is probably not the most useful thing. Again, the source of truth, the reason you want that, shrink that down to the top 20 assets, and then your AI is going to recommend the right one most of the time, as opposed to hunting through random obscure files that are inside of a system that have been outdated for 5 years.
Very good. I dropped a link to a podcast I was listening to last week, the 2020 VC podcast, and it wasn't about this topic, but right in the middle of the podcast, talk about data, creation and then retrieval and the Wikipedia model that, I mean, you can't go in and just create an article today. It's just not even an option. You're going to have to go find the piece, and you're going to find what you think you would add. It's probably already there. And then if you think you have something you can add to it, you probably can. But there's really at this point nothing new being added in there. It's just being linked to something that's already been created by someone else or changed. Let's see. Taylor asked, I think this is a good one. Are there specific categories of content you use to organize your source of truth?
So typically, going back to the stage of the buyer journey, I would also look from a category kind of perspective, tagging, things of that nature. You have industries, features, products, geographic regions, things of that nature. You're going to want to keep it probably to 5, maybe 10 categories and have specific tags inside of those systems. So, something really quickly, or if you're saying I'm working with this type of customer, so persona is also really, really great. Their firmographic tags are here. So, I narrowed it down to the right type of business. And then I can narrow it down to the right type of reader. And then I can also narrow it down to the business problem I'm trying to solve. If you do that, then you can hone it in and you'll find the gaps where you don't have content to serve that particular person inside of that industry for that particular business need.
Awesome. If you've got a question, you can just come off mute and ask your question, or you can drop it in the chat. I'll be
Ben, could
quiet.
you share some examples of what that content looks like that you're talking about or the source of truth? I'm trying to visualize how you're building this.
Yeah. So, at the very basic level, almost everyone has access to a Google Sheet, right? This would be a great example. Left-hand side, you're going to have a link to wherever the content is actually living, whether it's in your Google Drive, Dropbox, who knows where, whatever it is, or a website page. You'll have a description in the next column. And then you'll start getting into these categories and tags where the next column is to say industry. And then you'll have your specific drop downs for every single row who you could say is for these industries. Then the next column will be the next category. This is the persona. These are the applicable products or features, things of that nature. You'll go through and so you'll have, 5 to 10 of those columns explaining it. Lives inside of a Google Sheet. People can just come in, quickly glance at what they need. And the reason you have the tagging and categorizing is if someone doesn't know what the content says or looks like or things like that beforehand, they could look at the description and tags in just a couple of seconds and say, yes, this is applicable to my need. I'm going to look at it. Or no, this is something that's irrelevant. I'm not going to look at it. That's how you want to kind of narrow it down. But a Google Sheet, Excel spreadsheet, those are kind of like the very basics. That's where I would start before you get to a more sophisticated kind of a system.
Super helpful. Thanks.
Mhm.
Who else has a question for Ben?
After you have the source of truth and you have all of this done, what is the next step and what are the biggest um, wrong moves or mistakes you see people make after they've got these 5 steps done?
Yeah, 100%. After that, I love artificial intelligence. I would probably start to get AI involved. Again, let's go back to the Google Sheets. It has a great MCP integration with your chat GPTs and things of that nature. If you have the source of truth and the gatekeeper, things of that nature, you can point chat GPT right at that specific document. And then you can start to utilize AI as a resource inside of all of that as well. And you can start to expand that. So that's where I would go from there. Honestly, with the content audits and constantly refreshing everything, you're going to find the gaps. It's going to be very apparent that we have a lot of content for a specific persona, industry, stage of the buyer journey. We need to focus on these other areas because they're completely underserved. You're going to start to see that out in the open. You're going to create better content. The next thing would be putting in also a way for you to track the usage of that content. Again, if your 60 to 70% isn't actually getting used, it's going to individuals that are consuming the content and sharing it out with your customers at the various stages and saying, what are you using? What is working? What isn't working? And you're going through and actually getting feedback on the content directly from the team, making sure they know about it, making sure they're using the source of truth, and starting to put some analytics towards content usage and factor that in when you're doing the audits of whether or not I should delete the content or move forward with it.
So I have a question that it maybe is more philosophical. Are you aware of any studies about the types of content and their most effectiveness in the place of the buyer's journey? Infographics, white papers, case studies, competitive analysis. Those are kind of the four top ones that I can think of. Have you seen anything or is there any studies available or any knowledge that you have about which of those are most effective in which parts of the buyer's journey? Or is that just something you have to learn along the way?
It's more about for me, obviously there's some trends like the case studies and things of that nature are going to be a little bit lower in the buyer's journey towards decision making. But it's also what's fascinating is it's completely different by industry and persona. So that's one of the biggest elements that a lot of people are looking at with repurposing of content. There may be a particular piece of content that is a phenomenal piece of content. Maybe it's in the format of a blog or an article. But if you're in the home services industry, for example, a lot of that content is actually consumed via audio and video because there's constant traveling and things of that nature. It's a much easier way to consume content. So it's actually kind of interesting. It's mapping out to your personas where case studies may actually not be that beneficial, but a quick 5-minute audio interview with a customer may be more beneficial depending on the persona in the industry. But as far as high level statistics, I'd have to look it up. I don't have any reports or studies on hand about, particular pieces and in particular stages.
Thanks.
Mike, do you want to come off mute and ask your follow-up question?
Yeah, I'm curious if you advocate creating your own LLM or getting something off the shelf or some other thing.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, creating your own large language model, unless you have $1 trillion, you're going to do a really crappy job at it, to be honest. So it's a matter of utilizing the correct tools. And first of all, I would recommend using something off the shelf. The larger language models, obviously, you can custom instructions and training. There's different tools for agents and all that kind of stuff. What I would really recommend in this space is not if you should use your own LLM. My personal opinion is you shouldn't. It is you should build your platform or your systems in such a way that you can switch between different large language models in a very easy way. Now, the main reason for that is one day Gemini is going to come out with a new update and you're like, oh, this is perfect, but you don't want to rebuild your whole system because you're integrated with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the economical side of things. As soon as a new model comes out, all of the old models get lower pricing. And so for you to also understand, okay, great, where is that balance of efficiency and price and quality? You're probably going to end up wanting to go between Anthropic, Gemini, and ChatGPT at some point in time with the various models that get released. That would be the main thing. Make it as open and as switchable or flexible as possible, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, very cool.
Is Masset, does it have an agent built into it, or is it just organization?
We do have an agent. So we built our own custom agent that lives inside of Slack. So, rather than having to hand code a single source of truth, people inside of Slack can just say, hey, Masset agent, I need content for this, this, and this. And it'll say, great, just use this. So the agents are a great way to make the adoption curve that much easier for people rather than them going to somewhere. But again, if you don't have an agent like that, a single source of truth is great because if they have to go to multiple places, it's almost impossible for people to find content. So there's kind of that progression that you'll eventually kind of graduate into.
Um, Very good. Okay, we got time for one more question.
Hit me.
Taylor wants a sidebar. He wants his own session.
I want to know how to start, Ben. Like, I feel if we chose a content czar in our organization, we would be handing them a Google Drive that's poorly organized and full of content from 5 years, and they would immediately turn around and walk away.
Donuts. It starts with donuts, Taylor.
Donuts
Sounds
is
like you're
always the
dealing with a
answer.
digital hoarding nightmare. When a workspace
So what I would recommend is go through and then have them find the top 20 pieces of content. That's where you start. Go interview different groups, your CS group, your sales group, every other group, and say, what are the top pieces of content you use? Build the spreadsheet with just the top 20. And you may want to start ignoring everything else and find out where you should go from there. Then you start your audits, and maybe during those audits, you add a little bit to the system. Top 20. To be honest, in most organizations, depending on how many industries you serve or how many products or features, 20 pieces of content may be all you need for a while, to be honest, to get the most value out of it. But I would say don't look at the thousands of pieces of content, most of which are outdated. Find 20 that are actually being used, create the source of truth, and then kind of go through that revision cycle from there.
Couldn't you also to kind of do a scan of your mailboxes to see what the sales team's sending most often?
100%. Yeah, if you had control with that, I like just talking to the individuals to see kind of the quantitative and qualitative as well. Like what documents do you typically send for people in this stage of the buyer's journey? Great. Why? And once you know that, you're going to have the additional insights. But if your IT has access to all of that and can consolidate it, man, yeah, that would be incredible. That's a great place to start as well.
Paul McCarran, is there not some like synergy here? Are you not seeing this as a plug-in?
I am. I've already tried to connect with Ben online to bring it, not to bore everybody else in the group chat, but 100% I see a lot of synergy between us. So yeah,
Very
hopefully
cool.
Ben, we can connect up separately off this call.
Love it.
Awesome. Okay, well, this has been great and informative. Thanks, Ben. Thanks everyone for coming out and joining. Thanks for the Q&A. It's always the best. The best. We'll be back here next week at the same time and hope to see you then.
Thanks, everyone.